Today we're taking a look at the new 2023 VTM 34 by Hoyt Archery. Just a reminder guys, head on over to mikesarchery.com to pick up any of our latest logo gear. We got plenty of hats and shirts as well as any gear you might need for your next adventure. Welcome back to Mike's Archery's YouTube, and today we are taking a look at the new VTM 34 by Hoyt. It is their new 2023 lineup bow, and as always, Hoyt is kicking out some bows made in the USA over there in Salt Lake City, getting us bows in a timely fashion this year. So let's take a look at the specs of the new VTM 34. The speed rating on this bow is coming in at 334 feet per second. The axle to axle obviously at 34 inches. The overall cam to cam length is 38.5 inches on this bow. The bow does have a little higher brace height than its 31 counterpart at 6.25 inches. And a reflex of 5.25 on this bow. The advertised spec weight on the new VTM 34 is 4.8 pounds. Now we pulled that out of the box with the stubby stabilizer as you would get it, and it's coming in at 5.6 pounds. I know it's a longer axle-to-axle bow, but that is a little bit heavy as far as an overall bow setup. But if you're looking for stability and you're looking for extra weight and you're going to weight it back up anyway, the bow is going to come out of the box ready to rock and roll. Now from there, we pulled everything off of it, got it down to a spec weight at 4.8 pounds. So once we stripped it down, we got exactly what Hoyt is advertising at 4.8. Hoyt stayed with the same HBX Pro cam. So on the new 34, you're going to be able to get a draw length adjustment on this cam from 26 out to 31 inches. And if you're needing on the short end, we were still getting all the way down to 26 on this bow. Now, if you're one of those guys that needs the excessive draw lengths out at 32, 33, then most certainly go check out the High line from Hoyt. Now, the draw weight options on the 34 are going to be available in 10-pound increments and max weights of 40, 50, 60, also a 65 in between there, a 70, and an 80. So you're going to be able to outfit this bow if you need light poundage for whatever reason. You're going to be able to get this bow all the way down to a 30-40 range. If you're wanting to be one of those guys that's stepping up, doing the heavier weights because of the smooth draw on the Hoyt, then most certainly you can order this bow in an 80-pound max also. The cam also has the standard Letoff from last year with an adjustable 80 or 85% on that module peg. Now from there, let's take a look at some of the features. Not a ton of changes this year. They kept with the same HBX Pro cam, so you're still going to have that ability to get your full draw length options using a number 2 or number 3 base mod rather than a cam swap. And then they kept with their overall integrated system. So you've still got the integrated rest option on the back. There's a lot of new options coming on the market for this year. So there's several rest manufacturers jumping on board with that integrate system, giving you more opportunity to shoot the rest that you like. Now, one of the changes they did make for the rest setup is they milled a new slot into the bridge riser. In the past, if you've set up a Hoyt because of the bridge riser technology that they've had for years, you've had to run that cable on the outside of things. Could create a little friction, made it a little aggravating to get it around to come up. And if you ran it on the inside, you risk the possibility of it getting in with the way of your arrow as it came through for the flight. With this new slot in there, it gives a little cleaner look, a little easier setup. No worries going right through the center of that bridge riser. It's able to tie into your down cable from there, making a great cleaner setup than what they've had in the past. From there, they kept with the Picatinny sight mounting. So on the front end of the bow, it's still milled directly into the riser, makes a nice clean look, and there's a lot of manufacturers jumping on board with the Picatinny sight rail mounts. So you're getting more options as time goes on for a sight that fits your needs to mount directly into this system. Now, one of the other changes they made here with the sight mounting system is if you're running one of the new Garmin Pros from Hoyt, you can mount that directly on the Picatinny rail, and then they have milled slots into the riser for the proper cable run. So if you're familiar with that Garmin, it has a trigger that mounts down near your grip, and you would have to run that cable. In the past, you had to be a little creative trying to run it down the side of the riser, tape it in place. They've put in some slots directly into the riser specifically for this, so you can run it through the riser, making a nice clean setup, keeping those cables out of your grip, out of your sight picture, and just making it a nice cleaner form, running it down through these new slots that they put in the riser. From there, Hoyt kept with all the basic accessory setups that they've had since last year with the SL sidebar mount, allowing you to mount that sidebar lower, giving you a better center of gravity, eliminating some weight there. It allows you to get the proper balance and feel out of your bow. Also, you can still run with their super light quiver system, allowing you to adjust that quiver system, getting it as tight as you possibly can if you're taking advantage of the full system from Hoyt. You're also able to add the go sticks on near your short stabilizer at the bottom. Just makes a nice kickstand setup for you to be able to sit this bow down and keep it handy if you're in a blind or walking the range. Now, one of the other changes they made with these longer risers for this year, coming with the 31 and 34, this being the longer one, is the riser is stiffer. They did that by beefing up. It's a little wider at the top. They also put a little more width into the riser to allow you to put those slots and cuts in there. It made it a little bit heavier, but not a lot heavier. It's not something to get real excited about, but it allowed for a stiffer riser, giving you more accuracy and better consistency through the shot. Also, some of the new advertised numbers that Hoyt is putting out on this new riser is the fact that it is giving off 31% less hand vibration. It's also giving you 11% less sound. So these are numbers that Hoyt's throwing out there from their engineers, and they've got a great engineering department out there that's able to measure these things exact. From there, you've got your shortstop stabilizer still on the riser, that same great grip that they've come up with a couple years ago. In my opinion, probably one of the nicer feeling grips on the market. And from there, you still have your single rest hole as well as your string stop. Again, if you're not using their integrate system, you don't have the ability with double rest holes to lock a rest in place, I would push you back towards this integrate option. It just takes out some of the variability and the option of being able to bump something or move your rest while you're hunting. They also kept their offset stationary roller guard, which is something they've had for several years, and then their new string silencers, the Whole Shot V2s, already installed from the factory. The overall package is just creating a better feel, a quieter, better hunting bow, and a better experience for you. Now, the color options on the new VTM 34, Hoyt has kept with their same colors they've had the last couple years, except for a couple new color options. So in your solid colors, you're able to get this bow in a black, a buckskin, and wilderness as you have in the past, or you can get the new bourbon, which is a little darker, richer color than the buckskin. Really a great looking color on some of these aluminum bows. Now, if you want to keep with your traditional camo colors, you've still got this bow available in Realtree Edge, QU Verde 2.0, Subalpine, Elevated 2, and then a new camo pattern coming from Origin called the Origin Raptor Highland. So that's going to be available as one of their standard camos on this bow. And then if you want a couple of their custom patterns, they still offer the Bone Collector option in Realtree Edge or Black with the Bone Collector logos, or you can get the Keep Hammering Cam Hanes option, which is now going to come in the Origin Raptor Highland camo or in a blackout with those Cam Hanes logos on this bow. Now, for the price point of this bow, Hoyt did go up a little bit for this year, and we did expect that out of most people. The MAP retail on this bow is going to be $13.49. A lot of folks have went to that $12.99, $13.99 price point on their longer axle-to-axle bows, and Hoyt's right there in the middle at $13.49, keeping themselves competitive with the market and making a great platform to get you going with a new bow. Now from here, we're going to step over to the lane. We're going to shoot this bow as usual on 29-inch draw length with 70 pounds and on 85% let off, and we're going to give you a breakdown of everything from a 350 grain arrow all the way out to a 500 grain arrow, as well as the noise rating and overall feel of this bow. So we stepped over here in the lane and we've got the VTM 34, and we're going to put this thing through its paces and shoot a few shots over it, give you a breakdown on the chronograph and the noise and just overall feel. And as usual, we'll be shooting this VTM 34 on 29-inch draw length with a 85% let off on 70 pounds, starting with that 400 grain arrow and then working through all the other grain weights just to give you a breakdown of how those speeds stack up. So let's take some shots out of this VTM 34 and just see what kind of numbers it puts up. All right, so the VTM 34, and as I go through these numbers, on a 400 grain arrow, it gave us 305. Now, to preface this, shooting it on 29-inch draw length, this is the only thing we can come up with. Now, the numbers I'm going to give you, if you go back and watch the VTM 31, for whatever reason, the 34 should be, as far as advertised speed, about 8 feet per second slower than the 31. Now, what we are seeing is it running almost 1 to 2 feet a second faster on these setups. Now, with that said, the only thing we can kind of come together to make it make sense is being the longer axle to axle and then being at the top end of a number 2 mod to get that 29-inch draw length. We are getting peak performance out of this mod at 29 inches on the 34. With the 31, when we shoot that on 29 inches, we're actually towards the bottom of a number 3 mod on that 31. So actually not getting peak performance on a 31 at 29 inches through the draw cycle of that cam. And that's the only explanation that we've got for why our speeds are posting a couple feet a second faster across the board on a 34. So let me give you a breakdown of those numbers and we'll compare them to the 31 as I go here. So when we put a 350 grain arrow in this 34, we got 323 feet per second compared to actually 320 out of a 31. Now again, as we came down to the 400 grain arrow, we got 305 feet per second compared to 303. And with a 450 grain arrow, we dropped down to 288 feet per second, just a couple feet faster than the 31. And then at a 500 grain arrow, we got 276, which again came in a couple feet per second faster. Now we've seen that out of some other manufacturers where the longer bows are actually faster, but traditionally that is not the norm. And for whatever reason, when you test these bows at the factory, they're saying it should be slower. We're showing it holding numbers right there with it, if not a foot or two a second faster. I guess that actually puts the 34 coming in more realistically, hitting spec speeds from what Hoyt is advertising, and maybe the 31 coming in just a little slow. With that said, the 34 is a nice feeling and nice shooting bow and putting up some great numbers for the length of this bow. The speeds are excellent. So from there, as far as the noise rating on this bow, it's coming in at 97.2 decibels, and that is a little bit louder. And when we were shooting it against the 31 here, it was noticeable. I mean, it's not something to get real excited about, but it was a little louder bow than what the 31 is. Typically, that's backwards from what we would see out of a longer axle to axle, what should have been a slower bow. And just to make sure you understand, we do test these things and we check all the weights ahead of time, so we're not shooting the 34 on like 75 pounds or something dumb. It's got to be a difference in that roll through on the base mods on these bows. From there, with those noise ratings, we can take it down to what the feel of this bow. As always, Hoyt's grip, one of the nicest grips out there, in my opinion. Still that great rubber grip, got a great feel in your hands, sits extremely well. I will say on the 34, it feels a little heavy. We know that 34 is heavier, and it feels a little heavier in your hand, and it does have a little bit of top heaviness to it. So when you're standing there with nothing on it, it does have a little forward drop coming out of your hand with nothing on it, and you can feel that extra weight in the top end. From there, the draw cycle on this bow, amazingly enough, usually I like a longer axle-to-axle bow, but on this 34, the draw cycle is not quite as smooth, in my opinion, as the 31. Again, if you need the extra draw length, you want that extra forgiveness, that longer axle-to-axle, and the weight doesn't matter to you, then the 34 is where you're going to want to be. Typically, I like that 33, 34, but the feel, as far as the draw cycle compared to the 31, is a little bit rougher. Now, when I say a little bit, it is probably something that most people wouldn't notice. But it does have a little rougher coming over the top and coming through the draw cycle on this 34, but still a good feel, just not quite as good as the 31 in my opinion. From there, the aftershot on this bow, dead in the hand. Exactly what we expect out of the Hoyt. Very dead, no vibration. The extra weight in this riser, I'm sure, helps with that. Taking jump out of the bow, taking any vibration out of the bow. Anytime you add weight to it, it's something that is going to just make a bow sit and be more dead in your hand. And the 34 is certainly that. So Hoyt's still got a great platform here with the VTM 34. So if something you're looking for is a longer axle to axle, more forgiving setup from Hoyt, then most certainly give us a call here at Mike's Archery and we'll be glad to put one in your hands.